So you're probably here because you're interested in learning how to stop spending money. But can I ask you something? What would it actually mean for you if you found a way to stop spending money altogether? Today, we're going to be going into the records to examine our vocabulary, and we're going to be looking at why a single word that you probably use every day when it comes to money is very literally the thing that's blocking you from getting to your bag. I'm Alana, and this is the Power Within Archives. This is a space where we are dissolving the illusions of the world to remember our power as creators. We aren't learning this, but we are remembering. If you've become accustomed to holding your breath when it's time to look at those account balances, if you've been living in a world where a $15 accidental subscription charge because you forgot to cancel in time feels like a personal attack on your survival, if you've spent more time abandoning your shopping carts online than actually treating yourself, if you've been living in that tightness, both in your wallet and in your chest, this is the time to exhale because it's time for us to start circulating. So welcome back to your true reality and let's get to it. So lately I've been thinking a lot about the language that I use around money and how it influences my beliefs and behaviors. I'm a huge fan of Reverend Ike, and I was recently watching a video of him saying he doesn't like to say that he spends money because that implies that he's not going to get it back. So instead, he says that he circulates money because the word circulation means that it will return back to its origin. He says as expenses come up, think of it as you're sending your money to go over there and pay your light bill, and that money comes back, bringing more with it. And I'm going to try to insert a clip here so you all can hear it for yourselves.
Now let's get into very briefly the semantics of circulating money. And I'm even going to give you something to put in your checkbook, something to say whenever you use money, whenever you pay money, so that it'll come back to you. Now, that tells us what circulate means. To circulate means what? Return to point of origin. Say that with me. Circulate means return to point of origin. All of the money that I use returns to me multiplied in a never-ending cycle of increase and enjoyment, thank God. That's a part of what I say at the offering at my church in New York. Oh, by the way, you may use the term concerning money used, but I prefer circulate. You see, this way you've always got a hold of your money. It never gets away. It circulates. It goes over there and pays your light bill and comes back and brings more with it.
Isn't that wonderful? Like the first time that I heard that, I literally got giddy with like pure delight at the idea because I had literally never thought of money in that way. And I had no idea I could use a word other than spend to describe my financial transactions. Like very simple, but it never crossed my mind that I don't have to use the word spend. It was also great because seeing that and hearing that made me feel less afraid to buy things, to pay for things, to use money. I don't know if you guys have ever had a moment like this, but sometimes I get so anxious. I get so anxious about money because I feel like my current reality only shows me evidence that I don't have any. And because of that, the money that I do have, I do everything in my power to keep it. Like, I feel like I have to hold on to the money that I have with all my might. And I recognize that this behavior came from a place of severe lack and scarcity and survival. But it actually got to a point that basically under no circumstance was I willing to let the money that I had get away. Like, I was not open to using it. And because of that, I've probably done some things that were not necessary, like not bought food and not ate for days because of the fear of quote unquote spending money and basically never getting it back. When I watched this video of Reverend Ike, it's just a complete reframe. Simply, it's empowering, especially because I recently hit rock bottom when it comes to my limiting beliefs that support a scarcity mindset. It has all to do with my conscious and subconscious programming around this idea of quote unquote spending money. And I wonder if it's okay that I share a personal story of how this mindset around spending money has affected me. So last summer, my sister had a destination wedding in Cancun. So I was in Mexico with my family for a week, and my fear of spending money, my fear that any money that leaves my hands will never make its way back to me, that I will never see it again. My tight grip on the money I brought with me there because I went to the ATM and took out money before this trip. Not only that, but once I got to Mexico, my mom actually gave me some money as a gift. So it's not that I didn't have any money, but my fear, the fear of not even, well, I don't know, fear is not even the right word. My desperation, my despair, my hopelessness, my overwhelm, my worry, my loss led me to basically not eat any meals that weren't paid for by other people. And you might be thinking, that's great. You manifested people buying you food. And that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, I literally went multiple days without eating anything. Or the two times that I did go out to eat with some family, I made sure to order the cheapest things on the menu. I'm not really vegetarian like that, but one of the times I ended up getting some type of veggie taco plate because it was the cheapest thing. Instead of a tortilla, it was some type of other vegetable folded, like to substitute out the tortilla. So not even a really calorie dense meal. And that's all I had. And to be honest, the not eating part, it's not really a big deal for me psychologically, even physiologically, because I do extended fasts pretty often. I've been intermittent fasting almost daily for like 7 years now. And for a few years, I would actually start the first 7 days of a new year off with a water only fast. So I'm no stranger to fasting. Um, I'm used to fasting. I love fasting for the health benefits. There's tons of benefits. But in this scenario that I'm describing, it's a little different because my intention, my motivation for doing it. There were actually multiple nights that I really wanted to order like Uber Eats, get some food brought over to the hotel and The thought of that alone was stressing me out so much. I was doing the conversions of like peso to USD on how much it would cost. And I literally could not bring myself to part with the $14 or whatever it was going to be to order some quesadillas. Obviously, I was there for a wedding and it was a destination wedding at that. So there were a lot of different events and parties, of course, the reception. So I ate during those. And one night my dad took me to dinner. So thanks, Dad. But outside of that, and nobody else knows this, I was there with literally 50 family members, but I didn't eat. And it's all because I didn't want to part ways with the money that I had. I didn't want to spend it. A few months after this, I went on another trip with my family. This was for Thanksgiving. We were in New York, and it wasn't until it was time for me to pack for this trip that I realized none of my pants fit me. I had dropped a whole dress size. My mom was making comments about how skinny I was looking, and it was only then that I realized my not wanting to spend money on food behavior that I developed when I was in Cancun. I'd actually taken home with me, and I'd been operating out of that ever since. And I guess I kind of didn't notice because, like I said, I'm a pretty avid faster, no stranger to it. But yeah, I was not buying groceries, I guess, and simply not eating. My desperate need to not spend money had transformed into behavior that I have since labeled self abuse. So, all of this to say, after having that realization, I really wanted to take a step back and look at the language I use around money and just think about its impacts. The impacts it has had on not only my beliefs, but also my behaviors. Because the way that I was acting, you would literally think I had $0 in my account. And that simply was not the case. So I want to run through a few sayings, phrases, words I personally am no longer using in my relationship with money. And maybe some of these will sound familiar to you. I don't know. But the first phrase that I probably heard most often growing up was money doesn't grow on trees. I remember at some point after hearing this saying, probably for years at this point, I finally asked my dad, what exactly does that mean? And I remember him basically explaining that trees have tons of leaves, but you can't just go outside and pick money off of a tree like it's a leaf. And I don't know, I guess in my kid brain, the main thing I took away from that explanation was that money should be perceived as like a scarce, limited resource, and also it has to be worked for. Another one is quote unquote wasting money. I'm sure you've heard people say that or you've said that one yourself. You have to really scrutinize any purchase because, you don't want to waste your money. Or so and so wasted their money when they bought insert whatever the thing the person bought here. Or I hear this one mostly when it comes to adults talking to kids, but they'll be like, are you going to wear it? Are you going to eat it? Are you going to drink it? You better not waste my money. Waste, when I think about that word, to me, it literally seems like the opposite of circulating. It's like waste management versus recycling. And I actually just looked up the definition of waste, and it says waste refers to the careless consumption, disposal, or misuse of resources without adequate return. So, just with that alone, reading that definition, It has me thinking and reevaluating why we would ever use the word waste in the same sentence as money if we're trying to have an abundance mindset. The other one I would hear is that money is burning a hole in your pocket. Like if you get some money and you put it in your pocket, it's just like having a hot coal on you. So it's uncomfortable and it's burning a hole and you have to get rid of it quickly. And for me, I always took it to mean that, I don't know, like you didn't care about what you bought. You were just trying to get rid of the money quick. And also implied that whatever you were thinking of buying, it was probably frivolous. It was probably a waste of money. That money's burning a hole in your pocket. And I'm sure there's a lot more of these sayings and words that don't support the financial mindset we would like to have. And maybe you think it's not a big deal because you don't mean it in that way. You know, it's not meant to be taken as that, whatever you're thinking in your head. And yes, perhaps your conscious mind believes and understands that you don't mean it that way. But perhaps your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. And each time you hear or use these sayings, a seed of scarcity is being planted so deep within your subconscious mind that even when you do have money, you're terrified to use it. I just shared my own story. I've been there. I've lived in the reality where I chose hunger over quote unquote spending because the using of money to pay for anything felt like a betrayal. And for me, in that scenario that I described, the fear of a lower bank balance was more painful than the hunger. So I want you to get real with yourself for a second. If you stay in this money doesn't grow on trees mindset, what will life look like for you in 5 years? You're still checking your account balance at 2 a.m., holding your breath every time you have to go into your banking app. You're still passing up opportunities because you're too scared to invest. You're still skipping out on the things that would make you feel alive, the travel, the experiences, or simply buying yourself something that you actually want instead of settling for whatever is on the clearance rack, because you'll still be obsessed with holding on to every dime you have. Just think about that. Feel the tightness in your throat right now as you think about using money to treat yourself and the guilt and shame you would experience if you were to ever try to. That's the feeling of a life lived in a cage, and you don't have to stay there. So yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking about how much energy we put into worrying about money and our finances. I'm talking heart racing when the subject of income or finance, account balances, taxes come up. But what if we allowed ourselves to think differently and react differently? When you pay your light bill, you aren't losing, wasting, spending your money. You're sending that money out to do a job, to pay a person, to pay for a service, to pay for a thing. And because you're part of the same flow, that money has to come back to you. It's a loop. It's not a one-way street. The moment I started saying, I'm circulating this, the fear that I had and was experiencing before literally left my body. And it actually reminds me of those ceremonial release doves. A few years ago, I went to a homegoing ceremony for a family member, and they had some ceremonial doves released during it. So they released the doves, They went their separate ways, like into the sky, flying. And I continued watching. I saw them circling around, circling. And sure enough, maybe 5, 10 minutes later, the doves return back to their owner. Imagine waking up and the first thing you feel isn't dread, but peace. Imagine swiping your card for anything. It could be a nice dinner, it could be simply a coffee. And instead of that flinch you feel, you actually have a sense of pride because you know you're contributing to the world, to your community, to the flow of energy, the flow of money around you. And because you use the language of abundance, your body now feels relaxed. And you actually start to see opportunities where you used to see walls. You move with more confidence as someone who understands and knows the source of all things is infinite. I know a lot of us are feeling it right now. I have so many friends who are unemployed or in between eras, and the instinct is to clench our fists and hold on to every cent. But clenching fists is exactly how you stop that flow, stop that circulation. You prevent it because you can't receive anything with a closed hand. But when you really focus on the words that you use, you can actually start to think of money as something more than a piece of paper or digital currency. It's an entity, it's energy. And as Reverend Ike says, money has ears. So let's start talking to it nice. If you have some time right now, I'd love to guide you through a short meditation to help you integrate this change in your perception and the language that you're going to use moving forward about money. So if you are in a safe space, in a comfortable space, and also maybe you can pause here and come back to this later. But if you're ready to be guided now, take a deep breath and close your eyes. And I want you to pretend and imagine that you are standing on the edge of a boundless ocean. This is the ocean of infinite supply. And I want you to notice that the waves are coming in and out. Imagine your money is that water. When the tide goes out, do you panic? No, because the law of the ocean is that the tide always returns. Continue watching the tide as it goes in and out. And this time when the tide goes out, imagine that's your rent. That's your groceries. That's the debt that you're paying off. And again, just notice how the ocean doesn't panic when the water leaves the shore. Now get the sense that as the water is out there, it's picking up gold from the depths of the sea. And now feel the shift. The tide is coming back in. This time it's hitting your feet, but it's heavier than before. It's warmer. It's multiplied. And as you're feeling that wonderful, relaxing ocean water against your feet, repeat after me. I do not spend, I circulate. And what I circulate returns to me in a never ending cycle of increase. Take another deep breath and open your eyes. So, we're closing the archives for today, but the work doesn't stop here. You've seen the truth behind the language of lack. Now, your only job is to walk out into the world and stay in this flow. If this exploration resonated with you, I invite you to follow the podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel. But more importantly, I want you to practice what we talked about today. If you know someone, a friend, a sister, colleague, who is still caught in the cycle of financial despair, maybe you could circulate this episode to them and give them the opportunity to benefit from this information as much as, or even more than, you have today. When you share wisdom, you aren't losing it. You're expanding the circle of abundance for everyone. And with that, I'm Alana, and this has been The Power Within Archives. Remember, the supply is infinite, the veil is thin, and the power has always been in you. I'll see you in the next one.